Notice to the public, if you wish to address the, public wishing to address the council, speaker cards are located on the table near the entrance to the building. Please give the speaker card to the chairman or council clerk prior to the beginning of the meeting. Individuals addressed to the council should be respectful of others in their choice of words and actions. All cell phones, pages, electronic devices used for communication should be silenced for the duration of the meeting. We'll have an invocation by Councilman Carl Harding and the Pledge of Allegiance by Councilman John Navy. Please rise.
Heavenly Father, as we realized when we woke up this morning, oh God, it was a brand new day that we have never seen before and we will never see again. On this day, oh God, we ask that you look within our hearts, our minds, our bodies, and our souls, oh God, that we have a full understanding what is our purpose, to show love from one brother to the next. We ask that we have the full understanding, that we also ask the wisdom and knowledge and understanding from above, oh God, that we manage the affairs of this council, this parish, oh God, that we may go forward in unity and in strength. May we ask this in your darling Son, Jesus' name. Amen.
Call a meeting to order of Wednesday, June 10th, 2020 at 6 p.m. Can I have a roll call, Ms. LaCombe?
Mr. Harding?
Here.
Mr. Michel? Here. Mr. Amade?
Here.
Ms. Domain?
Here.
Mr. Darren Guidry?
Here.
Mr. Danny Babin? Mr. Dirk Guidry? Mr. Charles Clare?
Here.
Mr. Navy? Mr. Chairman, you have a quorum present.
Thank you, ma'am. Approve the minutes of the regular council session held on May 13th, 2020. Move Mr. Darren Guidry. Second, Mr. John Amity. All in favor? Any opposition? Motion carries. Distribute the minutes of the regular council session held on May 27th, 2020 has been done. Approve accounts payable list for 6/1/2020 and 6/8/2020. Move Mr. Dirk Guidry. Second, Mr. John Navy. All in favor? Any opposition? Show one abstention, Mr. Darren Guidry. All in favor? Any opposition? Motion carries. With the one abstention. First order of business is general business. Item A is a presentation regarding assisted outpatient treatment court mental health program by Dr. Victor Tedesco, Terrebonne Parish Coroner, Janet Hayes, President of Healing Minds, NOLA, Judge Kern Reese, Orleans Parish Civil District Court, Division L, and Lisa Schilling, Executive Director, South Central Louisiana Human Services Authority.
Steve, I just got a call from Mr. Danny Terrio with the coroner's office, okay? Dr. Tedesco was at our council. He was trying to get in over there, okay? So he's on the way here right now.
Okay, you want to come back to it?
Yes.
Yeah, make a motion to
Deviate. Come back. By Mr. Dirk Guidry, second Mr. Danny Babin. All in favor? Any opposition? Motion carries.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I don't think we approved the manual checklist for April.
We did?
We approved, I think, the accounts payable list, but I don't know if did we
Okay.
approve the manual checklist, Ceci?
I missed it?
No, it did not
All
get
right, thanks. Okay, approve manual checklist for April 2020. Move Mr. Dirk Guidry, second Mr. Darren Guidry. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion carries. Okay, item B has been pulled from the agenda. Suzette, should I read it? Okay. Consider the introduction of an ordinance creating a Parks Department within the administration, making the Terrebonne Parish Council the governing body for recreation districts number 11 and 23, creating a districts number 11 and 23 community boards serving as committees of the council, and calling a public hearing on said matter Wednesday, June 24, 2020 at 6:30 p.m. Item C, discussion and possible action regarding planning procedures for the soccer field being planned behind the Southland Mall. Mr. Michel.
Okay, and I believe we have some people from the public who want to talk about this. But the issue, the concern that I had was that work began and ground was disturbed in a large quantity by people who were working for the Home of Terrebonne Soccer Association, and nothing was filed with the parish. And so the neighbors are concerned about lots of things. I'll let them speak for themselves, but it's my understanding that today a letter went out to the president of the Home of Terrebonne Soccer Association, and he responded to it, indicating that the lines of communication would be opened up properly, and we'd be looking at it in an appropriate manner. So at this time, the people from that subdivision, if y'all would like to come and speak, you're welcome to do so right now.
Mr. Chairman.
Excuse me, please
Yeah,
leave your
yeah,
name.
state-
Excuse me. Please state your name and address.
Yes, my name is Gerald Adkins, 109 Brandon Drive. That's right by the water tower in Broadmoor. And my property borders on the property that's being developed for the soccer field. And my concern is, and I'm sure y'all have never heard of this topic before, my concern is drainage. And the field drains to our property, mine and all my neighbors back there, and it's subject to create a good many problems. I would think that the problems could be lessened a great deal by reconfiguration of that field. And the people that's developing it told me at first they were planning to build the fields parallel to Bayou Gardens Boulevard. And that would allow them to build a ditch and a small levee between their property and the subdivision, and all of the drainage water from that area would be diverted then to Bayou Gardens, drained to the pump there, and be pumped out accordingly. Since then, they have evidently changed their minds, and they've cleared and ditched an area that doesn't conform to what they told us they were going to do at first. So that would be my main concern. I'm not that opposed to recreation for kids. As a matter of fact, I was involved with about 6 boys through the years with Homa TPR, then TPR, where I was a coach, and in baseball and basketball, and then on the board for a number of years. So I know how important recreating the young people is in the parish, and I'm all for that. But we would need to, I think, look at this situation a little bit more closely to see if we can eliminate some of the problems that arose when we discussed it with the soccer field. Another thing is they wanting to put a 6-foot chain link fence from the corner of their leased property all the way to Bayou Gardens Boulevard. And a lot of our neighbors already have total or partial wooden fences in that area. So our concern is, will this degrade property values with a 6-foot chain link fence there or not? There's several other problems or questions I think that some of my neighbors have, and I will allow those people to speak at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Atkins. Mr. Brandon Gazzarfi?
Thank you for letting me speak. As Mr. Gerald, my name's Brandon Gazzaffi. I live on Southland Circle next to the water tower. Been there since '93. Our drainage system's already stressed when we have heavy rains. As my neighbors will speak, the water backs up into our yards. The land that before was undisturbed was mostly just low land, held water, didn't really go anywhere to absorb it to the ground. Now, as you see the pictures that have been distributed, it's forced now into the drainage that we drain into, and our only real concern, as my neighbors are speaking, is what's going to happen to the impact to us and our drainage, and is it going to cause more water in our area. We're not objected to the soccer fields at all, but we just want those questions answered for us. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Gazzarfi. Jamie Rose?
Hi, I'm Jamie Rhodes. I live at 15 Cambridge Circle. I'm the one that took them pictures. That was actually yesterday morning when it started raining. Our biggest concern is the water. We didn't have a whole lot of problems while the little bit woods I had behind my house, it had like a little levee. It kind of held back the water. You know, a partial levee would maybe work for us. But as you can see, once they started tilling the ground, once the ground was broke, it started to push the water toward us already. And this is just in a little shower that came through yesterday. That one picture right there, it shows you that if we get a heavy rain for several hours, we're gonna have issues. Our other biggest concern, I had a barrier protecting, you know, I didn't see the mall. We had a little wooded area right there. We had the wildlife, you know, squirrels, stuff like that. We enjoyed that. They took all that from us. They took our privacy away. My neighbor next door, they're not here, but they have a pool. They have, now they're gonna have a soccer field 5 feet from their pool. People's gonna be looking in. She's scared to go in her pool now when you're gonna have people from all over coming, and she's not gonna be wanting to get in a bathing suit to go out, and she don't know if they're gonna be taking pictures of her. So, you know, there's a few of us that would, instead of putting a cyclone, we asked to see if they would put a wooden fence. You know, it's only 3 sections that they would have to put a wooden fence instead of a cyclone. Instead of putting a cyclone all the way across, put wooden fence in 3 sections. It'd probably be a lot cheaper for them, give us our privacy back. We all for a soccer field, we don't have a problem with that, but the water and the privacy is our biggest concern. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rhodes. Jody Bland? Name
Yes,
and
I'm
address.
Jody Bland, 110 Brandon Drive. Also, I share the same concern as my neighbors, is the drainage, the water. What's the plan, and what are they gonna do to prevent our yards from flooding, or our homes from flooding from this?
Okay, and we're going to ask that somebody address that. Mr. Pulaski, at some point, there was discussion of a dry retention pond, if I recall correctly. And Mr. Gerald Atkins had mentioned what he felt was the simplicity of having the fields positioned at a 90-degree angle from their current plan. Do you see any merit to that?
Well, there was discussions early on about the soccer association working with the parish and having a detention pond as part of the drainage plan for that facility. As far as the orientation of the fields go, I mean, that's really not anything that we as a parish can regulate. I mean, I would think that the soccer association is going to look at how can we orient the fields, one, to get the most efficient use out of the area, meaning the most number of fields, and usually they orient them on a north-south, or try to at least orient them on a north-south, so you're not looking into the sun. And that's what the plan that came in recently showed, that perpendicular to the road, so that's generally a north-south orientation. And these are platforms that they're constructing, so they will stripe them ultimately in different ways depending upon the level or the age groups that are playing on these pedestals. But certainly, to respond to the questions that the residents have about drainage issues, I mean, that's been our concern as well. And although we do have rules and regulations about how water is to be, how it's to be drained, how it's to be let back into the public drainage system and things of that nature, it's hard for us to speak with any confidence about what they're doing because we didn't have any information from them. And that's the whole point of the MS4 ordinances that letter is all about is, okay, guys, you need to get us this information. There are certain things that we have to review and verify, and we cannot do that without a plan from you all. So they got right to work, and they've already started to send us, or at least communicate with us. I know they spoke with Joan Shake-Snyder in our engineering department today, and we're expecting to get drainage plans and the stormwater pollution prevention plan. Well, we thought we might even see it as early as this afternoon, but it's looking like it may be tomorrow.
Are they prohibited from doing anything else until they get some clearance from us?
Correct. They have to stop work. I mean, we need to get that information from them before they can continue.
Okay, and the other, another issue that these gentlemen didn't bring up is, I'm very concerned that this is gonna, and look, I think this is a great thing. It's a great thing for the mall, it's a great thing for the soccer association, it's a great thing for the kids, but I'm concerned about, the crossing of, Bayou Gardens Boulevard by pedestrians. Is that something that, do they have any responsibility in that at all, or is that just a parish issue?
I mean, I would think that ultimately Bayou Gardens Boulevard is a public street, so that'd be something that the parish would certainly consider. I mean, you know that we've done
I know.
a road safety assessment of Bayou Gardens Boulevard, so we can incorporate that. I mean, there is such a thing as a Safe Routes to Public Places program, and so, if we want to look at the appropriate location for a pedestrian crosswalk, that's something that we could certainly do through our MPO under that program, Safe Routes to Public Places. And I don't believe that there's any match at the parish level. I think it's a 100% funded program. As a matter of fact, we have a TAC meeting, Technical Advisory Committee meeting with our MPO tomorrow morning, so we could bring that up.
Okay. All right, and does anyone from Bayou Gardens subdivision have anything else that they'd like to share or respond to anything that anybody said? Is Mr. Kaiser here?
I was going to mention, I did receive an email from Mr. Kaiser. Unfortunately, due to work commitments, he wasn't able to make this meeting. But I'm sure they're going to be watching this. They may be watching it on Facebook right now. And then we have a meeting with Soccer Association officials tomorrow to go over some matters out at Bayou Country Sports Park. So this will be discussed as well.
Okay, and I wish you would share with them. I realize there's probably nothing we can enforce as far as the privacy fence. But I sure wish you would share with them that it would go a long way to them being good neighbors to those people and showing a little bit of goodwill after they've tried to force this issue through without proper channels. It would go a long way to show that it was a mishap, and it would help the people who are ultimately going to be their neighbors and looking over those fields when nobody else is there.
I sure will.
Okay, all right. Anything else, gentlemen? Okay. All right, thank you, Mr. Pulaski.
Welcome.
Seeing no further lights, Mr. Michelle, you take, I'm sorry, Mr. Amity.
Mr. Pulaski, are there any buffering requirements that would address the fence issue?
Well, in our zoning, there is a buffer requirement. It can be a fence, or it can be landscaping, or a buffer between a commercial use and an existing residential use.
But it
This is a
doesn't-
recreational use.
Yeah.
So it doesn't quite fall into the same category, but I will certainly take the message to the Soccer Association.
Thank you.
Mr. Danny Babin?
Yeah, Chris, you said it's a recreational use, but what is the property zoned?
It's zoned C6, which is light commercial, but recreation is a permitted use because recreation would be a permitted use in R1, single-family residential. It kind of falls into that
Yeah,
zoning
it's a gray
hierarchy.
area there. I'm going along with what Gerald is thinking here about the buffer, and that's why I asked what it was zoned to start. I know it's a recreational use, but yet it is sitting on commercial property.
Well, if the proposed use, if a applicant came in or a development came in and they were doing a commercial development, by all means, they have to put in.
Correct.
in the past, if you have a commercial use that's being proposed in or newly developed commercial use in an area that backs up to residential, if the residential area already has a buffer, like fences,
Correct.
then, you know, the developer certainly could put landscaping, and we recommend or suggest that they do that, but they're not required to at that point, because the buffer already exists. The fences on the residential area.
Okay, I was just trying to go on the fact that it was commercial to start off with, and they literally started this without any permits?
There's no building permits required for the type of work that they're doing. And you know from being on the planning commission, many times when development occurs and site disturbances occur, it's either connected to a development, like a structure that's gonna be built, or it's tied to a subdivision that's happening. And in those instances, we have plans and approvals of those things. But when somebody goes out and just starts moving dirt around, if they're disturbing less than an acre, okay, well, you know, there's not a whole lot that we have, but once you hit that acre area of disturbance or more, that's when the MS4 compliance kicks in,
Right.
and that's what happened here.
Okay, good enough. You have a safeguard in place, is what it boils down to.
Correct, and I know David Rome in Public Works, they have several MS4 compliance officers, and we have an individual in the parish permit office who's also working to get his certification, so we'll have more.
Yeah, of course, nobody's against the soccer, association or it, being the recreated people, but I can understand the residents' concerns on all of this. Here, dirt's being turned, water's being held. There was a problem. I don't know if we still have a problem on the boulevard there with flooding. So it's a major concern for all of these people. So as long as we get and evidently no drainage study had to be done because of the way it fell, correct?
Well, they should have come to us with at least if they knew that they were going to be disturbing an acre or more, then the proper protocol would have been to come to the parish and say, all right, here's our plan.
Right.
I mean, we had discussions with them when it was conceptual, all right, we want to put some soccer fields at this area, but we never heard anything more really than that for a long time, and then all of a sudden, here's dirt being turned.
I got you. Well, you're on top of it, so that's what's important. Thank you.
And they've been cooperative.
Ms. Domingue?
Yeah, thank you, Chris. Just a quick question. If this soccer field is going to be like an economic driver for the soccer association, shouldn't it be zoned as a commercial rather than a park? Because it's not just a park, it's a property for that soccer association to make money off of.
Well, they're a nonprofit organization. I mean, the use is recreation. That's the interpretation that we've always held here.
So anyone can use those fields?
I'm sorry?
So anyone can go and play soccer on those fields?
Well, the soccer association holds the lease, so, I mean, it's a nonprofit, but it's still a private entity on private property. It's not a public park,
Okay,
but it's still recreation, the
Okay.
use.
all right.
Yes? boy.
Mr. Hardy?
Mr. Michelle was first, Steve.
Oh, you was up?
Yes. First of all, what I hear from the people is water. Their concern should be life and their property. I also hear privacy, and that's what's my concern. And I guess when Ms. Domingue made mention of anyone using it and it becomes more privatized, my concern, if it's private, it does not really have the weight on my shoulder. Where the weight does come on my shoulder is their livelihood, their lives, their property, and their privacy. And I think with Mr. Rome and your expertise, y'all can settle that matter in reference to how the Soccer Association is handling their business, our number one concern should focus on what their number one concern was, is their lives and their property, and that's what I'm thinking. And I think that's my focus, less toward the Soccer Association. I'm more in line to those people and their concerns of their property, their lives, and their privacy. Thank you.
Mr. Michelle.
Thank you. And I just had one more question, just, I guess from a personal standpoint or from a councilman's standpoint, and that is, I noticed, I was made aware of this 2 months ago, and I believe I called you, Mr. Pulaski, I believe I called Mr. Rome, I called some other people, I called everybody I could to find out what I could find out, because I didn't know anything about it. And, but what I want to know is, if we see something like this going on, any of us, who is the right person to call? Where to go with that? Because I think we should have caught this as a government entity. We should have caught this at least 2 months ago.
I agree. I mean, admittedly, in practice, this is an area of the ordinances that we don't delve into too much. I think because, as I mentioned earlier, most often development like this occurs either associated with a building going up or a subdivision going in. So we know about it well in advance. I think the MS4 ordinance was 2008. Yep. So the ordinance puts the responsibility of enforcement of the ordinance on the planning and zoning director in conjunction with the public works director. So to answer your question, who should we go to with? Either David or myself. And now that we've already had a taste of this, now we know, okay, we'll know how to mob up and address the issue much faster. I mean, I started calling my contacts at HTSA as soon as I got the call from you. And Mr. Aiken's name, I believe, was brought up, and I mentioned you've got a property owner who's got some concerns. And it was communicated to me that we'll talk to parish engineering, we'll get it going, and then come to find out, okay, here we are 2 weeks later, still nothing. And then last week we started circulating the draft of the letter. I wish it would have gone out sooner, but with all the storm prep that we had, in particular with public work, a lot of the people on that letter were all busy getting ready for tropical storm. So it took a little while to get it out. But
Okay. So either you or Mr. Rome should do the job.
absolutely. And if anybody's interested in seeing that, let me know, and we can circulate that ordinance around from 2008.
One other issue that
Suzette's
didn't come.
got it, so.
One other issue that didn't come up, and I was just noticing in one of these pictures, they have all of this fresh soil. We had all of this water, and a lot of this soil is being washed into what I'm guessing are culverts underneath there.
That's what the SWIPI is all about. The Stormwater Pollution Prevention Plan shows where the disturbed area is, where all of the existing drainage infrastructure is, and how they're protecting that infrastructure from sediment erosion and things like that.
So who's going to be responsible for that if indeed enough soil went down there to cause a problem?
I don't know, is that?
We have, the drainage department was dispatched out there this afternoon to go do a preliminary inspection, and then we're going to put a camera in it and see if there's a serious issue there. If it is, we'll work with the contractor to have it cleaned. If not, we'll just do a routine cleaning of it with the vacuum truck and get it out there, provided that they do conform with the MS4 requirements.
Okay. All right. Look, guys, I appreciate y'all more than you know. I really do. And so thank y'all. And I want this thing to be, I think, what everybody wants it to be, a really great thing for the kids and maybe even a revenue producer for them all. So thank y'all.
Mrs. Derek Guidry?
Yeah, Chris, you had mentioned that a couple of weeks ago you alerted HTSA to the problem. Did we invite them tonight to this event? Anybody give them a formal invitation that we would be addressing them so they could come speak to us and tell us of their plans?
I mean,
Mr. Michelle?
I spoke to Mr. Kaiser yesterday, who said he would be here today, but apparently something came up and he could not.
Okay, because I can't imagine that, first of all, I gotta think HTSA wants to have improved drainage on soccer fields, so I gotta think, you know, they have, you know, drainage, I gotta think there's a common interest. You know, they need to work with the neighbors to make sure we have the proper barriers, and I think if they have wooden fences, I don't think, you know, putting cyclone fences, it seems like they could work with the neighbors. Everybody wants to be good neighbors. I wish the HTSA people were here so we could, you know, ask them at a public meeting about it. But that seems like the path of least resistance, and it's got to be cheaper to do, you know, 2 wooden fence stretches than to do a whole length of cyclone fence. So it seems like it would make business sense. But I mean, ultimately, we need to be in the same room with the HTSA really to make things happen. And it might not be a bad idea, Mr. Michel, if you invite them in 2 weeks to come give us an update on their project to the council as a request. It's up to you. I know it's in your district, but I would like to know what HTSA's plans are. So, you know, publicly, I mean, yeah, it is a private organization, but they open themselves for public memberships, and they do touch a lot of residents in the area. So I got to think they're, you know, some of the residents right there, and some of their people they know may end up using those facilities. So I got to think, you know, you know, they'll work with us or work with the residents. But I'd like to see them maybe come to one of our meetings. Thank you.
Mr. Pulaski, can you ask him to do that?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Michel, no further action? It's possible action, no further action? You good? Okay. Okay, thank you. Item D is a resolution authorizing the parish president to execute a cooperative endeavor agreement with the Lafourche Parish government concerning a portion of public street on the Terrebonne Lafourche board. Move Mr. Dirk Gidry, second by Mr. John Amity. All in favor? Any opposition? One light, Mr. Danny Babin. Say it again? Okay. All right, thanks. I was going to ask that question. Okay, motion carries. Motion by Mr. Danny Batten to go back to regular order. Second, Mr. Dirk Gidry. All in favor? Any opposition? Motion carries. Item A is a presentation regarding assisted outpatient treatment court mental health program by Dr. Victor Tedesco, Terrebonne Judge Coroner, Janet Hayes, President of Healing Minds NOLA, Judge Kern Reese, Orleans Civil Parish Court, District L, and Lisa Schilling, Executive Director of South Central Louisiana Human Services Authority. Mr. John David would like to speak before we start the presentation.
Yeah, is Dr. Fidesco came in yet? Yes, okay. Doc, can you come up to the mic? Is the rest of is Lisa them here too? Lisa? And I'm not sure if the other doctor that was from, or the judge that was from New Orleans is here yet. They probably got confused about where we're actually meeting at. But the only way? I'm sorry. What you saying?
Put your mic, press the button on your mic, please, doctor. Okay.
All right, okay. I do not see the judge, Judge Reese or Janet Hayes here at the present time, who had prepared a pretty extensive presentation. But the AOT essentially is assisted outpatient therapy, which is a court order to help patients with severe mental illness like schizophrenia and manic depression who are failing to comply with their treatment program and are resulting in multiple readmissions. We looked at the data in Terrebonne Parish over approximately 3 years from 17, 18, and 19, and we had over 2,600 Terrebonne Parish residents underwent a coroner's emergency commitment for severe mental illness. During that time, about 23% of them had 2 or more, but about 4% or 116 of them had 6 or more admissions or readmissions to the hospital for this mental illness. And these are the patients that would benefit most from AOT. And I hope that Judge Reese, who has started the program in Orleans Parish, is one of the first programs in Louisiana. I know there's one in Baton Rouge also. And Janet Hayes, who runs the program, I hope they are soon arrive to be able to explain it to you in more detail. But I'd be willing to take any questions, and I thank Lisa Schilling from the South Central Louisiana Human Services Administration is here.
Dr.
Right behind me.
Tedesco, if we're gonna do a presentation, why don't we just hold it over and come back to it? I mean, instead of trying to split it up.
As soon as, I hope that they show up. They were supposed to be here tonight. Do you know anything different, Lisa? Okay, so.
I mean, we can hold it, or if you want to go with it like it is, I mean, I think if you expect them to be here, it'll be best interest of all of us just to hold it over for a few minutes.
All right, I agree with that.
Yeah, if we just make a motion to hold it over, and if they do not show up, we would like for you to give some presentation, you and Ms. Schilling, if that would be all right.
That'd be fine.
Okay, motion, Mr. Babin, second, Mr. Darren Guidry, all in favor? Any opposition? Motion carries. Okay, we're going to move on to item 2, staff reports, an update on drainage pump, generators, and other projects. Mr. Toops?
Thank you, Chairman Trosclair. If you look at the reports that were passed out to you, the first is a new report. It's a copy of an internal report that we use, but I thought I would show you all of the information on it and explain a little bit. These are all of our pump stations existing, under construction, and under design. The first thing I want to point out is on the first page, the items that are in yellow and in asterisk, those are the 5 SCADA systems that were approved last night for purchase from Force Industries for $98,000, and that's where the pump stations that they're going to. We do have, the second thing I want to point out is we do have 194 pumps, and out of those, 191 are either float activated or activated by float/transducers. We have 5 stations that are operated manually, and those are either, if you see, we got the reasons. One of them is an auxiliary pump to D3 in Montague. The other ones, the areas that they pump are too small to be activated by float switches. In other words, it would cycle on and off too much. And the last one is a small pump that is operated by the landowner as needed, but we do the maintenance of it. If you go on to the last page, it shows all of the new pump stations that are either under construction at the present or in the design phase. We have Upper Bayou DeLarge, Lashbrook, Bayou Cane, Petit Caillou, which is under construction, Hansa Canal, which you all know, we have 2 out of 4 pumps that are presently operating. The St. Louis Canal Road, that's the 2 small pumps that we have installed. They operate on the diesel. Right now, we're waiting for Sleeka to install the electrical supply. And then the Equity Boulevard pump station at Highway 311. The next report is the regular pump and drainage report. The new items to report, both the Cavanaugh Drive at St. Louis Canal Road pump station is 90% complete. The only thing we're waiting for is Sleeka to run the electricity, and we can make the final connect to the electrical. Same thing with the Westview Drive at St. Louis Canal. The Suzy Canal pump station, the one pump that was out has been repaired. It's back installed and it is online. And the last comment, I added all of the portable pumps that are that we just recently installed because of the backwater flooding, and that's on the last page. Next report is the emergency generators. All of them are operable, and all were test run as of yesterday. Final report is the capital projects report. The Arab base splash park is complete, and I'm hoping that Parish President Dove will announce a ribbon cutting date soon, being the summer's coming. It's one thing we need to discuss, President Dove. The 6-foot ditch project is complete. Hanson Canal Station, as I stated earlier, we have 2 pumps out of 4 operating. The Petit Caillou structure, the lock structure, has begun. The government tower emergency generator project is complete. It was tested, it was load bank tested, the functionality test was done, and that project is completed. The 118 pump station, the contractor is finally getting back online, and that project is moving forward. The Ward 7 Phase 4 levee project has been completed, and the new Valhalla connector at the Bayou Sports Complex has been completed. And that completes all of my reports. I know it's a lot of information. If you want to look at it and you have any questions, please let me know, and I'll be happy to answer any questions now.
Yeah, we have a couple of lights. Ms. Domingue?
Hi, thank you, Mr. Toops. For just those of us who might be, for myself and maybe some people who are watching this on Facebook Live at home, can you explain to us the difference between the activation, between like what float activated means, or what, what transducer means? Like, what's the difference between them being, like, how they actually turn on? Nobody actually goes and turns a switch on these pumps. Like, what actually happens? Can you explain the process?
The float is a mechanical float that works very similar to the flush valve in your toilet tank. The float transducer is an electronic component that works on the air pressure that the water level rises, exerts on the transducer.
So whenever the water gets to a certain level in a neighborhood, in a street, does it automatically switch on? Like, how does the pump know that the water is ready to be pumped out?
They're all preset based on the design parameters that the Corps gives us. So we have a maximum height and a low level. So when the pump reaches a certain level, the first pump will kick on. If there's multiple pumps, different pumps will come on at different levels.
Okay.
And then the same thing when the water goes down, the float switch is set to turn the pump off.
Okay.
So out of 194 pumps, we have 191 of them that are automatically operated, whether the pump operator is there or not.
Okay, I appreciate that, because I'm sure, a lot of us got phone calls this past weekend. Are the pumps on? What's happening with the pumps? And so, just telling people that they need to, wait till it turns on, and the water will get out of their neighborhoods once those pumps switch on. Correct?
Yes, ma'am. And one thing that Councilman Babin and I talked about earlier this week is most of our pump stations are electrically operated with emergency generator backup. So when the electric motor's on, you don't hear it. Mm-hmm. And everybody goes by a pump station and they don't hear the diesel engine operating, but the electric motor is a lot quieter than a diesel engine. And if the electricity goes off, that's when the emergency generator comes on. The diesel is diesel operated, but it provides electricity to the electrical motor.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much for clarifying that.
Thank you, Ms. Domingue. Mr. Amity?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First, I want to thank Mr. Dove and the administration for the pumps on St. Louis Canal. They seem to have done a really good job. I know we still have some other issues that we're going to address in future projects there that we're looking at, but I think the people were pleased to see that those pumps got that water out of there and they didn't have it lingering. One thing, it's not in my district, but that 118 pump station on 311 by Equity, I get a lot of questions as to, what's taking so long, what's happening there. Could you ask the engineer maybe to share some information with all the council members, maybe something as to where it was, where it's at now, and projected for the future? I see the substantial completion date of October, but just so when we get calls, we can give a educated answer.
Mike, you want me to handle that?
Yeah, we had to call the bond company in on that, so I'd like for President Dove to answer that, please.
Thank you.
Yeah, John, what happened is, of course, they had fallen behind, and they were way over their completion date. So Vince DeGate was the attorney that we chose to handle it. And we approached the performance bond company. They stepped in, they're paying the company's payroll. They hired a construction/engineer to oversee the contract. And we went ahead and we've been paying the vendors direct. So like Associated Pumps, we didn't want to pay the contractor and then come back. Associated Pumps liens us as your contractor, so you know what I'm talking about. So what we did out of precaution, we paid everyone direct, so we don't have any liens on it. And so the performance bond company came in. They really worked well with us. They decided to keep the contract in place and work with them, which is good because it's complicated because the cofferdams is his sheet pilings. So if you get rid of him, then if he pulls the sheet pilings, you start all over again. So the good thing is we finally got that straight. Vince DeGate did a wonderful job, and Mike and David Rome and all of them worked with it, and Jeannie Bray. And T. Baker Smith and has worked well with it. It's not no fault of theirs. The contractor, I believe the cofferdam, he had a lot of trouble sealing it. I believe it was some bracing problems, in our opinion. And Amber, who is the engineer on it, the engineer on behalf of T. Baker's done a wonderful job. So actually, I was out there today. They've driven 14 out of the 21 pilings. So the concrete pilings are driven. They have 7 more to drive. The receiving wall on the east side has been poured, actually. The base is poured, and they still have the receiving wall on the west side of it. We sent engineers over to Morgan City. We checked it has a 20-foot radial gate. So the engineers went over there. They measured the radial gate, and they went over the radial gate to make sure we wasn't going to have problems with it. So it's sitting in Morgan City, and we're comfortable with it. So they should finish it up. I believe the date on there is October, and they look like they should finish it. It was just the contractor got in the bind over mainly the cofferdam. And what happened is, instead of the engineers called for the cofferdam to cross Little Bob Black, and instead he decided to do a bypass channel and run another set of cofferdam sheet pilings, and that's where he fell into trouble because they kept leaking. And so look, everything's on track, and I believe October is completable. But the performance bond company did step up, and we don't see any additional costs to the parish except the engineering charges that T. Baker Smith incurred, and y'all had approved that a few meetings ago. So right now it's underway, and if he'd have drug up, we'd have really ended up in court, and it would have been a bad issue. So we 4 or 5 months away from finishing it now.
Thank you guys for being proactive on it, and appreciate the update.
Well, thanks for the question. It's a good question, because I know a lot of people have been passing and wondering what's going on, and if you notice, if you pass that, you're going to see 7 pilings, and they're pretty long. They got to be 100 feet long, laying out in the yard. That's all they have left to drive, and so we're back on track with it, and I believe we'll finish on time. Thanks for the question, Mr. Amity.
Thank you, Mr. Dove. Mr. Davy, you want to speak on this? I see your lights on.
Actually, I just wanted to make a comment to Mike when he mentioned about completion of the Splash Park Canal Base. Dirk and I are still having some accessory equipment that Angela Gidger is putting out there with the benches and all kind of planters and things that they're putting out there to beautify, and also to have places for the kids to sit at and the families to be at. So as soon as she put that out there, and I guess whatever phase that it'll allow us to have Splash Park, then I guess Dirk and I get together and set up a date for a grand opening out there. I know it's getting hot, but I don't know what phase, I guess Chris or someone can answer that, where they actually will allow for splash parks. After, we're in phase 2 right now, so I'm not sure what actually phase we need to be in for that to actually happen. So as soon as that happens, Dirk and I guess, can introduce something to the public in reference to a grand opening for the splash park on the air base.
Thank you, Mr. Navy. Mr. Darren Guidry.
Yeah, and John, thank you for asking about 11A. You mentioned you've been getting some phone calls. Of course, I get a ton of phone calls because it's, my district drives by it every single day. So, yeah, hopefully, I was very disappointed that we weren't able to get that up for this hurricane season. But, it is definitely not, from anything that we did, we've been working very, very hard on that. One thing I do want to mention is I got some many phone calls during this storm event about people not understanding quite how our pumps work, especially in one area of Gibson, and the fact that there are 2 floats on these pumps, one that kicks them on and one that kicks them off, and it keeps it within a range. And I had, a couple of people in Gibson who are the lower properties in the neighborhood who are saying the pumps are off because it's coming up in my yard. But it hasn't quite got the on float, and they have to be set in such a way so the pump runs for several minutes, because if it kicks on and off real quick, it doesn't grease the pump and it causes major problems. So it has to have a certain amount of run time. So they do set it to where it'll kick on and it'll run for time and kick off. And so, people would tell me there's a yellow light on the pump. It's broken. But I found out the yellow light just means that the off float is engaged, waiting for the on float to come up. So it's in that in-between phase. So just in case you guys get it, and in case the general public sees yellow lights, it doesn't mean that they're not working. Yellow light means it's about to kick on. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Guidry. See it? Motion to go, public hearing, Mr. Danny Babin, second Mr. Gerald Michelle. All in favor? Any opposition? Motion carries. 6:30 public hearings. Item A, consider an introduction of an ordinance to amend the 2020 adopted operating budget and 5-year capital outlay budget of the Terrebonne Parish Council, consolidated government for the following item and to provide for related matters. Section 8 voucher for $9,508. 8 Boudreaux mitigation, living mitigation, $3,600,000. Home of Downtown Marina, $5,339. General Fund Beautification Program, $6,240. Montague Fire District Number 6 generator, $80,850. Sewage and generators, $1,109,953. Bayou Black Pump Station, $366,000. And the 118 drainage, $205,000. Public once. Public twice. Public 3 times. Closed, Mr. Darren Guidry, second Mr. Gerald Michelle. All in favor? Any opposition? Motion carries. Motion to adopt, Mr. Darren Guidry, second Mr. Gerald Michelle. All in favor? Any opposition? Motion carries. Item B, consider the introduction of an ordinance to amend the Terrebonne Parish Code of Ordinances by enacting Article 9 of Chapter 2, Administration, to provide for the recovery costs incurred on adjudicated property, to provide for related matters, to amend Appendix C of the Terrebonne Parish Code of Ordinances by adding Form 3, Note of Lien, Form 4, Statement of Cost, and Form 5, Affidavit of Cancellation. Public once. Public twice. Public 3 times. Motion to close, Mr. Gerald Michelle, second Mr. Darren Guidry. All in favor? Any opposition? Motion to adopt, Mr. John Navy, second Mr. John Amity. All in favor? Any opposition? Motion carries. Motion to go back in regular order, Mr. Danny Babin, second Mr. Gerald Michelle. All in favor? Any opposition? Motion carries.
Well, going back to with this regular order item on general business, item A?
We can, if that's where we need to go.
Yes, we need to, so we can go ahead, I think Dr. Tedesco already left too. We want to table that until the next council meeting.
Okay,
Make a motion to try to table that to the next council meeting.
okay, we got a motion and a second, we didn't vote on it yet, huh? To go to regular order? To revisit item A in general business
Correct.
by Mr. Navy, second Mr. Darren Gidry, all in favor? Any opposition? Motion carries. Okay,
Motion to table.
okay, now I got a motion to table, Mr. Navy, second Mr. Darren Gidry, all in favor? Any opposition? Motion carries. Motion to go to regular order, Mr. Gerald Michelle, second Mr. Darren Gidry, all in favor? Any opposition? Motion carries. Okay, now we're going to public wishing to address the council. I have one speaker card. Mr. Barry Bonvalant would like to speak on Homer Terrebonne Housing Authority. State your name and address, Mr. Bonvalant. No, you can take your mask down. That's fine.
I'm here as chairman of Homer Terrebonne Housing Authority, and I'm here twofold. One, we've been having some problems here lately from the council, and of course, other information I would like to pass on to the whole council as far as the Homer Terrebonne Housing Authority. At this time, I'd like to go over to Mr. Harding. I think he has something that he wants to bring up. And Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind, I would like to have a few words after that.
Okay, Mr. Harding.
I was approached, and it's public.
It's on public, was it on speaker card?
Yeah. Okay, Mr. Bonvalant, what we can do, if you don't mind, Mr. Trustclair, let Mr. Bonvalant say what he has to say, then I'll take over after that.
Okay, that's fine.
Barry Bonvalant, I forgot to give my address, 1419 Acadian Drive, Homer, Louisiana. The first topic I'd like to bring up was the interference I feel from a council member of the Homer Housing Authority as far as having some effect on our executive director. What has happened, our executive director does not have to respond to any council member. The only authority that's given is not to the council, is by the parish president, who appoints the members of the housing authority. The housing authority is a state-created board, and I guess our major attorney would be an attorney general. But we also have an attorney that helps us with local matters as we deal. But for somebody to come in, well, let me put this out before I go to Mr. Harding. We have 317 tenants in my tower. We have 500-something tenants Senator Circle. Lo and behold, and thank God for the executive director that we have, Mr. Steve Ponville, Miss Gidry, Angela Gidry. She was able to get with these people, put them all together, and also the parish president came in and helped us with it. Gave all the people masks. Give them all one like this. He even gave me one. Senator Circle, all of them got it. All of them got it by a towel. Not one came down with the virus. Boy, and I think, and I'm going to tell you, you don't know how much I can praise Ms. Gilton And she is here today. She's a civil service employee, and we recommend that she don't come up here and get involved, but she is involved in it to a certain extent. The only person I have any control over is the assistant director, us in the council, in the authority. The executive director runs the whole show, just like you, the council, legislative, housing authority, legislative, administration, Mr. Dove, administration, Ms. Yelton. I can't even go to any of the employees under Ms. Gilton. And I don't want to, and I don't do it. Because that is her responsibility. She answers to us only. And I guess the part is the attitude, I guess I want to say is, phone calls are made to Ms. Gilton saying it's complaints. So we get the information. She goes check on her. The lady said, I didn't complain about that. And I don't even know the guy that came here. And this past Saturday, I missed Mr. Michel by about 15 minutes because we were ready to call the police officer on him. This man came in, signed in. Everybody that comes there has to sign in. And what room you going to? Who you going? What room number you going to? That wasn't done. We having pictures, film of every floor.
Hang on. Okay, we have vote to extend, Mr. Darren.
Second.
Second, Mr. John Davy. All in favor? Any opposition?
Oh,
Motion carries.
I'm sorry, I forgot the time limit.
You got
I spent so many years and years like you all, I thought I had all the time in the world to do this
We'll give you
as
another minute
as a
and a half.
retirement reward.
We'll get you another minute and a half, Liz.
But anyway, we have cameras on all those floors. This man went down that hallway, knocking on all them doors, and all of a sudden, Ms. Gilton gets a phone call from a lady. Well, who is that man that's knocking on all these doors? He woke me up while I was sleeping. Now, all I can say is to let the council know this, and I think I said it once before. You have no control over the Home Housing Authority. That's a HUD program, that's a state aid, it's a state board, created board. And just like I mentioned, the only duty is the parish president. Before the parish president used to be the mayor of the city, Homo used to appoint the board. Parish president does that now. But anyway, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. I might have took some of the slack. I'm not exactly sure what we gave it, but I was going to have Ms. Gilton come up here. She probably done a better job with it than I would have, because she has a lot of compassion. And to be treated the way she's been treated and present for the future, be calling every Friday, stuff like that. This lady, everything I've asked her to do, every complaint I got, and believe me, a lot of people that in both of them places know me, and they're going to call me in my house. I don't get directly involved. I call Ms. Gilton up. She goes out and take care of the business, come back, give me a report. I can't ask for any more than that. Problem solved. That's the way it's supposed to work. As being on a housing authority, that's the way we do business. Anyway, I'm going to let Mr. Harding say a few words.
Thank you, Mr. Bonvillain. Mr. Harding?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Bonvillain. One thing, to be employed somewhere and to be threatened on your job by someone posing to have all the authority over your well-being. I don't particularly care for that because it affects people's food on their table. And then when you address the issue in reference to a person's character, then it becomes an issue back to the governing authority, which basically we appoint people there, and Mr. Bonfeland sits on the board there. That building sits in my district. I've spoke with Mr. Dove, and he have an opportunity to have a conversation with me because all the people in there live in my district. Ms. Gilton has shown me nothing but respect because she has her as her boss, but then her tenants are my people. I had someone come to my house off the second floor. I will not call his name. He was so offended how someone can knock on their door like the police and walk in there and want to ask what's the temperature of that building. I recall, I wouldn't say it's a code, but then it seems as if every council person that sits on the council shows respect to another council person when someone else goes into that district and disrespect them. It's just like knocking on my door and let me know, you just come in barging in my door, and you didn't want to let me know you're coming. So the point here, I'm gonna make 2 points because it's not much to be said. It's already understood. Mr. Michel entered the building at 12:15, and he went out at 1:33, and that happened to be this past Saturday. And on there it says, where are you going? And I can see this list right here. If you want a copy of it, I'm pretty sure when you signed in, you knew what you were supposed to do. Evidently, you said you visited, but then everyone else said where they were going. It got to a point where the security guard had to ask him to leave. And I'm not so much worried about that. I'm worried about Ms. Gilton, she has to put food on her table. I am offended as a human being, as a person that represents there, and I can honestly say I'm going to represent her. You're putting this lady's job on the line by threatening her, calling her, when she already told you that she lets her personnel go off at 11:30 on Friday, and you call her every Friday afternoon. So I told Ms. Gilton to send you an email, which I'm pretty sure you got, me an email, and document anything that you actually do. I am very much offended. And as for the tenant that actually came in, and he didn't know what to do. He was a very humble, elderly fellow. So I think what we want to know, and the public should be knowing, and I'm going to represent everybody at Bayou Towers. How y'all doing? I'm going to ask Mr. Gerald Michel, what was your business over there? I'm finished. I asked you a question. It's time for you to answer.
Point of order. Mr. Harden, you have lights off?
Yeah, I'm finished.
Okay. No further light, you speaking?
Okay.
Mr. Michel.
Okay. First of all, I never once interfered with the executive director. She's been nothing but polite to me. I've called her on 2 occasions because of an air conditioning issue. And this started about 6 weeks ago or so when someone in my district, and honestly, I don't care if it was in my district or not, someone in my district called me and said that one of their relatives who lives in Bayou Towers was very sick and did not have air conditioning, and she didn't know what to do about it. And so I said, I'll check into it. So I put a courtesy call into the executive director, and then I texted the parish president, and he responded by saying that it was taken care of. He actually, if I'm not mistaken, copied and pasted the response from the executive director saying it was taken care of. And the fact is, it wasn't taken care of. Do I think Mr. Dove lied? Obviously not, because he didn't even type it. He copied and pasted. Do I think the executive director lied? I do not think that. I think somebody told her it was taken care of, and it wasn't. Okay? And so they still had this guy that didn't have air conditioning. It ended up getting fixed the next day, and a few days later, it was out again, and they called me again. And then I got calls from other people telling me that their air conditioner was out. And, I mean, these are people, one of them is an amputee, one of them's on, at least one of them's on oxygen, at least two of them on pacemakers. And, I mean, this is a problem. And let me make this perfectly clear. I did not go door to door. There was a tenant there who spoke to some of her neighbors, and she invited me on behalf of them, and she came with me to the door that she knew people were open to discussing this problem. And the problem is not solved, okay? And we still have people who are in that building who are living in heat that's just unbearable. It was on Saturday when I went over there, it was only 80 degrees outside, and it was 78 degrees in these apartments. And I can't imagine what it was like today. And, you know, I didn't knock on the doors. I did not go knock on any door of anybody who wasn't expecting me. But what I want to know is, why isn't somebody knocking on those doors and going check? These people, if somebody lets the executive director know, not everyone, many people who I spoke to said that they're afraid to speak up because they're afraid of retaliation. Do I believe that do I believe that there would be retaliation? Honestly, I don't think so. I couldn't imagine. But this is the way these people feel. And so, but the fact is, it's weeks and longer that these air conditioning units are out. And these people are paying rent, and they're afraid to say anything because I'm told how much money they're paying for rent. They can't go anywhere else because it's more, and they just don't have the money to do it. I'm trying to help people. And when that becomes wrong, then something's wrong with that. And I was not there as a councilman. I am a councilman, and I was there, but I was not there as a councilman. I'm there because I care about people. And so, you know, I don't understand why more people aren't concerned. We have elderly people who are in that building who are burning, and it's not everywhere. And you can go pass by and look. It's the second floor, it's the seventh floor. You can see from the outside of the building that these windows are open. And there are multiple people for extended periods of time. You know, what are we going to do about that? That's the big question. You know, I went in there. I did not go in there soliciting. I did not go in there knocking on doors at random. I went in there because I was asked to directly by a resident and indirectly by several residents. So, you know, let's try to. And I realize most of the information you got, because I could tell by talking to the security guard, most of the information you got, you're expressing correctly, okay? But it's inaccurate information. You're not making it inaccurate. I think you got it inaccurately, okay? So,
Got a lot of that on tape. We got cameras on them floors.
and the camera will show me on one floor only. And if they say otherwise, let's see it, because it will show me on one floor only. And everybody whose apartment that I knocked on was expecting me. Every single person. I'll leave it at that. But I mean, me going there is not the problem. These people living without air conditioning is the problem. These people who are sick and in horrible shape. And then there's mold on the ceilings in the hallway and in some of the apartments. And you know, there's even one apartment that the door didn't even lock. It didn't even securely close. But those are all, you know, I'm sure they'll get to those issues. But the air conditioning is horrible, and that's the issue that we need to do something about. That's all I have for right now, Mr.
I'm going to try to stay calm. Well, Ms. Gilton has a particular working schedule, and this was a Saturday you went there. Evidently, you want to avoid seeing her. When you go to there and seem like everyone else can write where they're going, it seems as if that you're just the only visitor It's just a visitor there. If they have a particular protocol, we have protocol. Everywhere they have a protocol. You avoided the protocol that they have. They have a board. You address the board. And that's the way you should have handled it. I think it's not so much of an issue as your concern. It's the fact that you ended up as a representative. I guess you can actually say eventually you were asked to leave on the second floor. That's why you couldn't get to the third floor. And then they knew you were a councilman. And then inadvertently, I assume that you were stressing the fact that you were the councilman. If you had a problem with one particular tenant, we're not going to mention that. If you were going there, that's where you're going. Register a complaint to their board. And they got a process that they go, the same as we do here. You seem to have a lot of times that you want to have a point of order. You shouldn't use the point of order when you address these people. Thank you.
Mr. Dove, you want to speak before
Yes,
Mr.
okay, so I want to, gonna just add to this, you know, back a couple of weeks prior, when Gerald had called me, I said David Drury over there to double check it. Everything was fine. Talking to Miss Gilton, you know, they had shut their ACs off to do some maintenance work on them, and they put them back on. But on that particular day, I get a call from Miss Gilton, and she's very upset because a councilman is going door to door knocking. Is what the report I got is he was going door to door knocking on the second floor, and he told the security guard he's going to go to every floor. And I immediately told Miss Gilton to direct the guard to tell Mr. Gerald Michel to leave. If not, call me. I will get the sheriff's office over there to make him vacate. And I believe he had left after he was over the second floor, going to the third floor. Now, the biggest problem with that, besides knocking on doors of elderly people that's sleeping, and I know there was a report of a woman that was waking up, is we've worked very hard to put masks and gloves and sanitation wipes and these sanitized wipes. We were requiring everyone to use a Clorox when they do the elevators, when they go up and down the elevators, and hand sanitizers. And like Mr. Baumel had just said, we haven't had, God bless, we haven't had one elderly person with it in the government towers. Now, when I first heard that Mr. Michel was going door to door up there, the first thing I asked Ms. Gilton is, does he have a mask on? She said yes. So she called the security guard and said yes. I said, but I also asked, does he have gloves on? They said, no, they don't see gloves on. Well, my big concern is we are trying to keep people out of there to not get a pandemic like you've seen in these nursing homes. Now, all Mr. Michel had to do was to call me, call Mr. Miss Gilton, and do it. I don't know why he was up there, but I did direct the security guard to call the police, but he did leave, so the incident was over with. But you know, Gerald, you cannot go into these facilities, especially during this pandemic, and do that. There's a procedure for everything. I work a lot with Miss Gilton, and she does a fabulous job. We've checked on that air conditioning numerous times. We get a few complaints on air conditioning, and I've sent people there. The air conditioner's working fine. She's bought some fans for people who are not satisfied. It's an old building, but the AC is fine. And to take it on yourself to go door to door in a building we basically are trying to keep people out of, it could have spread this horrible disease through a lot of elderly people. Now these people are way up in age, so to cross the road in that fashion, I don't understand why he did it, but we've taken care of it, and hopefully, if I've already given orders over there, when I say orders, like he just said, Miss Gilton works for HUD, not me, but I've told her if that incident happens, have them immediately arrested, anyone violating what we're trying to do to keep people from catching this virus. That's my biggest concern, besides disturbing the people that was on that floor. And I don't understand what went on, but it's something that cannot happen again. We respect all the elected officials. I don't go up there, but I've been there numerous times. I mean, I've gone there a lot. And I've never had one person come up to me and complain about the air conditioning. Now, I'm sure there's some people that's too cold, too hot, so Dr. Keita told me, she said she's gotten fans, I believe, for most of the people to use them or don't use them to try to control it. But I asked, Mr. Michel, please don't do that again. I think you're jeopardizing the spreading of the coronavirus by going up there when you've got no business there. And that's my biggest concern, because with all these nursing homes that were, I mean, look, we go over the rates, go over the coronavirus and the deaths that come out of these nursing homes. We were very careful, and I want to commend Ms. Nikita Gilton for the great job. I mean, she's gone to Angela Gidry, picked up stuff herself. She sent people. Another one I want to say is Earl Hughes was there every step of the way. Candace on the money end. Every night for the last 3 months, we decontaminate all neutral, all common spaces in all 10 or 11 stories of that building. We've done it from like March 15th, we started doing it. And I think we showed that you can have a lot of elderly people and keep them from the virus. So please, to the public too, please stay away from there unless you have a business over there, because this thing's not over with. But every night at 10:30, when everyone's sleeping, we decontaminate that entire building. And then we've done that for, I think it's going on 3 months now. So that's what I want to say. I just want to go from step one to where this happened, and I just hope it don't happen again. Thank you.
Thank you, President Dove. Ms. Domingue?
Thank you. What I'm hearing is that Mr. Bonvillain has a concern about one of the council members here, and if there's ever a concern that anyone has with what they feel as overstepping of boundaries by any one of us up here, who's the right person to report that to? What are the steps necessary? Like, do we call you, President Dove? I mean, or does the public call you? Like, who does the public actually call if they feel that one of us has overstepped our boundaries?
Well, that's definitely not my position. I'm not going to tell Dirk what to do. So
Right.
What I'm saying is I think everyone has their own districts, they're their own government within their districts, and we all represent Terrebonne Parish.
However, if a member of the public feels like someone on this council has overstepped their boundaries in some way that's not ethical, who did they report that to?
Come to the podium.
Okay.
And I mean, that's the best thing I could say, because, my biggest concern was this virus, and of course, what happened with the people. I don't know why it was done, but we've checked that air conditioner, and like I said, Miss Gilton does not answer to me like Mr. Bowman explained, but she's worked with me hand in hand and done a wonderful job, and like I said, God bless, we don't have it. It's just, but I think if someone has a problem with me or any council member, best thing is, you approach the council member or come to the podium. That's why we have it.
Okay.
I guess it's the best answer I could get.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, Ms. Gilton's, okay, Ms. Gilton has some rules and regulations that she actually has to follow. And her, all complaints should go through the process with her. It's just like we have a recreation board, Mr. Von sits on as a chairman of the housing authority, but then her actual boss is the federal government, HUD. Okay. Now, what happens there also is the fact that because I work with her, because part of the management of that of the high-rise building and the people I represent, and I know a lot of people there, it makes things work much finer. And I was also told by some of the tenants that sometime that when the sun rises in the morning on a particular side and as it progresses to the west, the temperature changes. So therefore, in the morning, it may be hot, but then it cools off in the afternoon because, you know, of course, you have a building that's slightly older, but then that actually makes a difference in the temperature. Last night, I was freezing in here. Everybody don't adjust to the same temperature. Therefore, it's just like the members of the public. Some's gonna complain, some's not gonna complain. So the issue here is, the bottom line is, they have a board. Ms. Gilton is doing her job. I've actually asked a few of the tenants, how was Ms. Gilton? Word is, Ms. Gilton is a nice lady. Ms. Gilton, I spoke with her, she felt threatened. She felt as if that she was intimidated and she was wrongfully accused of certain things. I got offended. I apologize to all the Terrebonne Parish, the members of my district for getting out of hand, but I took it personal. Because even when the gentleman came to my house, he was concerned because he asked me, well, who's this man that come in my house? So that's his own house. So even though you may represent what looks like some authority or speak as if that you have authority, you do not have the authority to do that. I'm actually protecting the people that's in there, and they were offended. It wasn't just one. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harding. Seeing no further lights for discussion,
Mr. Chairman, can I come back? I'd actually, after Mr. Harding, if he was done with that.
you've done
I
your
wanna
time,
make a statement.
Mr. Bonvillain. I'll give you twice already. We've extended this out. I think pretty much you got something new to bring up, or is it just repeating what we've been saying?
What I'd like to say, I don't think any council member should be contacting, not even Ms. Gilson.
Okay, that's been said.
I
I
think
think
the
we
council
good.
should be contacting one member of the board of directors.
We good. That's been said already. Thank you, Mr.
Okay.
Bonvillain. Okay,
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a
well,
motion that,
let me announce this. I see, I've been informed that Judge Reese and Ms. Schilling has made it to the council from New Orleans, and Mr. Navy has asked to make a motion to reintroduce the item 1A on general business. And
I'll second.
Mr. Babin has seconded it. All in favor? Any opposition? Motion carries. Okay, we're going to do this for the third time. Item 1A, a presentation regarding assisted outpatient treatment court mental health program by Dr. Victor Tedesco, Terrebonne Parish Coroner, Janet Hayes, President of Healing Minds NOLA, Judge Kern Reese, Orleans Parish Civil District Court, Division L, and Lisa Schilling, Executive Director of South Central Louisiana Human Services. Would you all like to come up to the podium? And just state your name and address for public record. And if you at the podium, if you wish to take your mask off, you're welcome to do that. Steve, make sure the mic is on.
Yeah.
Okay,
They didn't want to wipe the mic because of the...
right. Is the light on?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Good afternoon, and thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to you about assistive outpatient treatment. My name is Kern Reese. I am a judge in Civil District Court, Parish of Orleans in Division L. And also with me is Ms. Janet Hayes, and I'll let her, ladies first, I'll let her speak first about this subject. I understand we had a little mix-up. We thought it was at 7 and it was at 6. We apologize for our tardiness, but we won't take up too much of your time. We want to give you the rudiments of this program, which I think could be very beneficial. Thank you. Janet?
Thanks, Judge. Thanks, Councilmember Navy and everybody. We're absolutely honored to be here tonight. And so my name is Janet Hayes. I started a nonprofit organization a few years ago to look at alternatives to incarceration, homelessness, and death for people with the most severe mental illnesses. And so as part of our initiatives, we began looking at assistive outpatient treatment, which is a law that was passed in New Orleans in 2008, but it hadn't really been used very well. her very much. And so we partnered with the Treatment Advocacy Center out of Arlington, Virginia, who have quite a bit of expertise in removing barriers to care for people with serious mental illnesses. And they helped us put together a statewide AOT implementation series where all of the mental health authorities, all of the LGEs, all 10 of them across the state attended. And from there, there was a lot of interest from folks who wanted to find out how to begin implementing programs. And so New Orleans and Baton Rouge really took the lead on beginning these initiatives. And so we brought in, partnered with, again, Treatment Advocacy Center, and had done 3 national trainings with them. And so spoke with Judge Reese to see if he was interested in possibly beginning a program in New Orleans, and that's kind of how we began. And so the program in other states and counties where it's being used has shown to be 70% successful in terms of keeping people out of the revolving doors of jails, emergency rooms, homeless shelters, and unnecessary institutionalization. We know that people with very severe mental illnesses who are repeatedly involuntarily committed and involved in the justice system get to be a very expensive problem for counties and the state, who end up having to pay enormous costs because we are unable to give those people some sort of continuity of care, to help them manage their symptoms while in the community, living on their own under the supervision of a judge. And just so there's no confusion, assisted outpatient treatment is involuntary outpatient treatment. It works for people so that they can live in community, do all the things that they want to do, but they are required to stick to their medication or take their medications, and the program also requires the mental health services to be delivered to them. All of this is done under the authority of the judge, and one of the things that makes the program most effective is what we call the black robe effect. So we know that people with mental illnesses and people without mental illnesses tend to behave better in front of a black robe rather than a white robe. So I guess I'll turn the mic back over to Judge Reese. Like I said, we don't want to take up too much of your time, so he can sort of fill you in on some of the more detailed aspects of the program and some of where we've seen savings for counties and parishes.
Thank you very much, Janet. I know brevity is the soul of wit. I'm sure everybody wants to get home, so I'll give you the thumbnail sketch. There is a law in the books, Louisiana Revised Statute 2866, and the succeeding sections that basically are on the books and have not been utilized to a large degree by the courts in the state. But what it evolves from is there was a tragic incident in New Orleans in 2008 where a police officer was shot and killed by a mental patient who should have been in some form of institution or in some treatment facility to deal with the problem. Now, Officer Nicola Cotton, after that, there was an outcry, went to the legislature, and this law was passed. And basically what it does is it calls for individuals who reside in the parish who are 18 years old, who have been hospitalized at least 2 times in the last 36 months, to come into this program through a court. We try to catch people after they've been hospitalized and stabilized, where they are at their optimum point. And then when they come into the program, a petition is filed with the court. They have to come into court 18 days after the petition is filed for a hearing. You get a statement from their doctor, and then you assign a community action team to them to assist them with maintaining their medication regimen, their treatment schedule, and any other social issues they may have. And the goal is to keep them out of the hospital. Now, if you do, in New Orleans, we did the math. We figured we could save the New Orleans Police Department about $1.5 to $2 million a year at least in police roles and EMT roles and taking people to the hospital. When a person goes to the hospital, the average cost, and Janet and I were talking about this, is $1,700 to $2,000 a day, versus having them go to an outpatient treatment consideration for substantially less. So it is very beneficial from a cost standpoint. Additionally, you get the added benefit of having families no longer having the stress of dealing with someone who is afflicted with mental illness. And I've learned mental illness is exactly that, an illness. If you catch it early enough, you can arrest it, you can stop them from decompensating further, and you can keep them out of the hospital. We have 2 people who've been in our program for almost a year. They were both had been fit the criteria. They both have been in the hospital a number of times. One of them now has advanced to the point where he can hold down a job. His parents are no longer stressed out and worried about where he is and what he's doing and who he's with. Another young man who was in the program, and he's about to graduate as well, has now opened his own business. He's also been an extra in movies, and his family is ecstatic. They even went on a vacation to Disney World, and he went with them and did not upset the vacation. I've seen the benefits of this program. It can work, and it's not very expensive. The New Orleans City Council passed a resolution and funded our coordinator position. And Jan and I were talking, we need probably part-time at least project manager to do the marketing and to help maintain, and then the coordinator helps deal with the participants in the program. But Dr. Tedesco made the trip to New Orleans. We had a long conversation, and he saw the benefits of it. And he asked that we come and speak to you regarding possible implementation of this program. Now, I brought some homework for you, and I got a PowerPoint presentation printed out, copies of the statute, a letter I wrote to Chief Justice Burnett Johnson of the Supreme Court, seeking the support of the Supreme Court for this program, which she has graciously assisted in. Haven't got any money yet, but we're working on that. And also some handouts from the Treatment Advocacy Center, which is the national organization that oversees this. So, again, sorry that we were not here. Janet, do you have anything else you want to add?
Well, the only one other thing I wanted to add is just sort of given circumstances with the civil unrest that's taking place now across the country, I wanted to point out that there are a number of officer related homicides in relationship with people with serious mental illness, and it works both ways. I have a report from 2017 that showed 115 police officers died at the hands of people with serious mental illnesses. And so I think in terms of just the savings to lives, that this program can prove to be, and has proven to be critical to communities and families, and helping us build stronger relationships with people, and so that was the only other thing that I wanted to add. So it's been important in that respect too.
Does anybody have any questions?
Yes, well, I just want to elaborate a little bit on what you all was just saying, and also some of Dr. Tedesco's concerns. He left him and Lisa Schilling, but one of the growing problems that Dr. Tedesco and I have, talked about for years, when I was working with the Department of Health and Hospital Office of Mental Health, I worked there for 18 years, and him and I worked a lot dealing with commitments. CECs, what you call them, Coroner's Emergency Certificates, was an overwhelming process then, and it still is today. You're looking at a situation where mental health, of course, we all know, is very grossly underfunded. It's a growing problem, not just throughout the country, not just throughout our state, but also in our parish. And we do see people with mental illness shouldn't be incarcerated. Hospitalization has increased, and this pandemic has taken it to a whole new level with lack of resources and funding. We do need to address this matter. Dr. Tedesco called me several weeks ago regarding this, along with Andrea Hayes, another young lady that was part of the process of spearheading this. And Dr. Tedesco was on a conference call with me. He said, definitely, John, let's bring this to the council, to our parish, because we have to deal with our mental ill population here in Terrebonne Parish. We cannot wait any longer. He has some very disturbing and alarming statistics that he couldn't present today, but we will be getting that information. And I think that it's time for us to really take a stakeholder in this process and say what we could do in our parish to help our mental health residents. They are still human beings. One of the things that Lisa Schilling wanted to talk about was some funding that they do have available, but we also want to look at maybe some position or something that we can look at, match that with the parish. And we always told Dr. Tedesco anything that he needs, we was going to assist and help him with, and he is asking for our help. He has loved this model that you are presenting, and I think you're going to hand that information out. We want to go ahead and move forward. I know we want to go ahead and move forward with treating our mental ill residents in Terrebonne Parish. You see them homeless. That's increasing issues there. They have family issues. The family dynamic is just torn up. I mean, it's a lot of things that people may not understand about mental illness. I know Jessica Doman does because she works in that field as a social worker. But I really think now is the time, not later. And Dr. Disco said, he said, John, look, I've been dealing with, and I know for a fact, he said, I've been dealing with this for years. We need to do something. I want this. I love this model. We need to go ahead and make sure that this is implemented in our parish. So I'm here tonight as a strong advocate for what Dr. Tedesco wants in this parish concerning this particular model, AOT. I think it's awesome. I want to see it happen, and I'm in support of it. Now, I also saw on here something in reference to a resolution. I'm not too certain, Sue, that you have a resolution? Okay, it's in the back. Okay. Can someone explain that? Because I want to make sure that the parish council and the public also understand the direction that we're going with this.
Yeah, absolutely. So I just want to let everyone know that Healing Minds NOLA is an organization that's looking at implementing a full streamlined continuum of coordinated psychiatric treatment and care for people with serious mental illnesses. This is our target population. It's a minority of people with serious mental illnesses, or with mental illnesses. But without that continuum, we're still dealing with a broken system. Assisted outpatient treatment is a very important piece of the continuum because it does deal with those people who are treatment non-adherent. They have difficulty adhering for one reason or another. A lot of the time it's because they have no insight that they actually have a serious mental illness. So that's a condition called anosognosia. It's sort of like if I'm trying to convince you that you have diabetes and without life-saving insulin you will die, but you don't really think you have diabetes, I'm going to have a really hard time getting you to go to the hospital to get your insulin shot, right? So a lot of people with serious mental illnesses suffer from this thing. It's a bit like Alzheimer's and dementia symptoms are similar. And so they simply, it's not that they deny they have a mental illness, it's part of the illness itself that they lack this insight. And so that's why if you see someone eating out of a dumpster who believes that he's the Messiah, and you try to, you're trying to convince this person to go to treatment, and they're saying, no, you're the one that's sick, I'm the Messiah, I can save you. Well, how do you get that person into treatment then, right? And so we really need to rely on our civil commitment laws, and preferably we can sort of dial them back a little bit to get people into inpatient treatment sooner. And then outpatient treatment is that streamlined inpatient, involuntary inpatient, involuntary outpatient to keep people on track. So the resolution that we passed in New Orleans last Thursday is something known as, so there's a rule, a federal rule that was passed in 1964 called the IMD exclusion. It's under the Social Security Act, and what it says is any institution for mental diseases, that could be a hospital or it could be a residential treatment center, is ineligible for federal Medicaid money if it has more than 16 beds. This rule has been on the books since 1964 and has been a big reason why we've seen the drying up of inpatient hospitals, inpatient care throughout the country. So in 2017, Louisiana applied for a waiver to the IMD exclusion, but only for people with substance use disorders, not serious mental illnesses. So now you see all kinds of residential treatment beds opening up for people with substance use disorders. But we don't see the same thing happening on the other side. And we know that these diseases are connected, right? But most people, if they have a serious mental illness, also have a co-occurring substance use disorder. So in 2018, Secretary Azar introduced another waiver for people with serious mental illnesses, and we've been urging the Department of Health, Louisiana Department of Health and Office of Behavioral Health, to include serious mental illness in that waiver that they got for substance use disorders. It would allow the federal government to pick up 70% of the tab, federal Medicaid. The state would be responsible for 30% of that. It would allow for longer stays in inpatient hospitals as well. And the doctors like it because if they can keep people in the hospital longer and they have more beds, then they're not always under pressure from insurance companies to release people before they're ready to be released. Because when you do that, they just come back. They keep coming back. And we're paying $1,700 a day for a bed. The other thing that happens is hospitals end up boarding people in their hospital because there's nowhere to release them to. That's where residential treatment centers come in. So it's a really important resolution. I'm so thrilled that Jason Williams, who's part of our New Orleans City Council, introduced it last Thursday. It passed with unanimous support, and Council member Helena Moreno, who used to be a state representative, also co-sponsored that resolution. So I think, in terms of convincing the state LDH to apply for that waiver, it would be wonderful if more cities would pass that resolution as well to signal to the governor that we know we don't have enough psychiatric beds in the state to care for all the people that need them. It's an illness like any other illness. We don't treat any other, what other illness says, or what other illness does insurance say? You can only get a maximum stay of 2 weeks in the hospital and then you're out. We don't do that for other diseases, so why would we do it for mental diseases? It's incredibly discriminatory, and so we would urge you and any city in this state to signal to the governor that we could benefit from more psychiatric capacity.
I see we have other lights, but I will just say this. Dr. Fidesz was here earlier, and he talked about the repetitiveness of the CEC, it's conflict committing, and I want the parish to understand that that process, with the lack of resource, is costing this parish a whole lot of money. That's what he's going to come in and let you all know. Because we are not addressing this matter, we are really blowing a lot of money in this parish behind these commitments and resources that we're using behind these commitments. And it's constant repetitiveness of the same individuals with the mental illness issues that are not being addressed. But I'm going to let my councilman actually want to address this matter.
Thank you, Mr. Navy. Ms. Domingue.
Thank you, and this is something that's near and dear to my heart because, as Mr. Navy said, I am a licensed clinical social worker and I work at one of the mental health clinics here. So everything you guys are saying I know is completely accurate, and Terrebonne Parish does have a very large population of people who are underserved, and our hospital systems are so lacking in this state. It's just a revolving door. They go in, they go out, they go to the clinic, they go back to the hospital. And so whatever we can do to provide more services, I think is fantastic. I have two questions for you, though. I know, sir, you're a judge in New Orleans. Have you guys hooked up with a judge locally, or do you have someone that you're going to be working with?
Well, I told Dr. Tedesco what he's going to have to do is recruit one of my brethren from the bench. Because what we did in New Orleans, I offered, and all the members of my court graciously accepted the idea that I would be the one to handle all the AOT cases. Okay. So they let me do that. And depending upon the size of the docket, right now it's manageable for one judge. With the passage of time, if it grows substantially, I've enlisted some of my colleagues who said they will also come into the rotation to accept those cases. So, somebody's going to have to step up to the plate to accept the AOT cases and to manage them. And it has not been difficult. I set AOT hearings twice a month. I have a specific time. The coordinator makes sure the participants come into court, and we do a treatment order for them. We maintain the order. We'll periodically tweak it if necessary, if they need to get more counseling, or they can go back on the counseling if their medication regimen changes. And then as they come into the program, I may bring them every hearing. Then I'll shorten them to once a month, then maybe once every 3 months. And like I said, I had a couple of individuals I was about to graduate. So, but you're gonna need to get somebody in the local judicial district to step up to the plate and accept the AOT cases. Okay. And now candidly, it's a law. So if anybody filed a petition, whatever judge it got allotted to would have to deal with the case. But I found that one person takes the responsibility and keeps it streamlined, keeps it focused. And I've learned a great deal about it, and I think I'm a little bit better equipped than my colleague who would be just coming into it to handle the matter better.
Okay, so could quite possibly someone who's in this program do kind of like a telehealth visit with you, you know, so that they wouldn't be traveling to New Orleans?
We are doing Zoom hearings as we speak, so, you know, we can incorporate that as well.
And then question two, is there one particular clinic locally that you'll be working with, or will it be any clinic
No,
locally?
the statute allows if it's a hospital or a treatment facility or just a parent, if they can hire an attorney and have them file an AOT petition. And if the person they're filing it for, the participant fits the criteria, then they come into the program. And we are fortunate to have some resources available to assign to them, ACT teams, to get them to their medication and to their treatment regimen, counseling, also help with housing and job placement when it gets to that. But, you know, that's worked out fairly well for us. Okay. And also we have the assistance of Dr. Dwight McKenna, who is the coroner in Orleans Parish. And they basically have worked hand in glove with us to help facilitate the program. So Dr. Tedesco would have to fill that role here in Terrebonne Parish.
Okay, that's all my questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Domingue. Mr. Darren Guidry.
Yeah, and thank you so much for coming, and thank you for your passion about this issue. Before the COVID happened, I was speaking to a group of students at H.O. Bourgeois, and after I said, do you have any questions? One of the questions said, what can you do to help prevent an active shooter in our school? And, you know, I never really thought that that would be that big of an issue for students, that they worry about that. But then I started thinking, what can we do? You know, we can't control how the media glorifies some of these shooters after the fact. We can't control that. But we can control whether or not we support people getting mental health who may become an active shooter if they're not treated. So anything we can do, you have my full support to expand mental health for the people of Terrebonne Parish. Thanks again for your passion, and I hope we can expand this program here as well. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilman Guidry. Appreciate your comments.
Thank you, Darren. And John, before I recognize you, I want to ask one question.
Yes, sir.
Earlier, you did say that this program, this AOT program, was for 18 and above.
Yes.
Okay. So parents still have a legal authority to admit these basically grown-ups at 18 years old?
It's the law of the state of Louisiana, sir.
Okay. That's good for me. Mr. Navy?
Yeah, and I just want to add, Dr. Tedesco said earlier that he would come back and explain Terrebonne Parish role in all this, and South Central Louisiana Human Service Authority, which is our state agency that deals with mental health, is coming back too to kind of explain their role too. And also, I just want to put out there that I do support the resolution, and I would even like to vote on the resolution if we could tonight. But just to when Dr. Tedesco comes back, it's going to be alarming as far as the commitments that he has actually done and the cost that has actually have occurred and cost this parish because of that. And, you know, like I said, coming from a student of working with the mental health field for such a long time, even when I worked there 18 years, it was grossly underfunded. The state was constantly funding it. We actually brought, a resolution or actually an ordinance years ago to kind of carve out some money out of our own millage that actually was targeted to help mental health. So, you know, we have done some things, but it's just not enough. I know it's never not enough, but the mentally ill is a serious growing problem. And just in our criminal system, one of the things that I think they had an article about some years ago, the sheriff talked about the mental ill in the jail, and that we need to provide some type of services because they don't have the resources to address their needs. So this is an opportunity, and like I said, I'm spinning all of this off of what Dr. Tedesco was telling me and some of the concerns he have, and it's causing a lot of problems now for his office, not just from the lack of resources, but from the funding aspect of it too. So whatever we can do, as I alluded earlier, and just like they just said, we support. I definitely support.
Councilman Navy, thank you for inviting us to come and make this presentation to the council, and we'll reiterate if we can be of assistance in any way, please feel free to contact us.
Thank you. Appreciate y'all coming
Okay,
in.
and I'll leave the information with your clerk.
We appreciate that. Thanks a lot.
Okay.
And have a safe trip back to the city.
Yes, sir.
So, John, you want to make a motion to adopt this?
Make a motion to adopt the resolution.
Okay, let me read the resolution, and then we'll move on. Consider adoption of a resolution requesting the state to seek an amendment to its existing IMD waiver to extend such funding to those with serious mental illnesses. Move Mr. John Navy, second Mr. Darren Guidry. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion carries. Motion to go back to regular order, Mr. Darren Guidry. Second, Mr. John, Jessica Polanis, Domingue. All in favor? Motion carries. Sorry, man. Thought I got over that. Okay, committee reports, Budget and Finance Committee, Mr. John Davy.
I make a motion tonight that the council accept and ratify the minutes of the Budget and Finance Committee meeting held on June 9th, 2020. I have no public hearing.
Move Mr. John Davy. Second, Ms. Jessica Domingue. All in favor? Any opposition? Motion carries. Public Services Committee, Mr. Carl Harding.
I motion tonight that the council accept and ratify the minutes of the Public Service Committee meeting held on June 9th, 2020, and I have one public hearing.
Moved by Mr. Carl Harding, second Mr. Dirk Gidry. All in favor? Any opposition? Motion carries. Community Development Planning Committee, Ms. Jessica Domingue.
I make a motion that council accept and ratify the minutes of the Community Development and Planning Committee meetings held on June 9th, 2020, and I have two public hearings. That the Committee Development and Planning Committee introduced an ordinance to amend ordinance number 9099 in order to perform technical corrections to delete the verbal descriptions for precinct numbers 40 and 109, and calling a public hearing on said matter on Wednesday, June 24th, 2020 at 6:30 p.m. And I have another one. A resolution giving notice of intent to adopt the ordinance to amend the zoning map of the parish of Terrebonne so as to rezone from R1 Single Family Residential District to C2 General Commercial District lots A and B belonging to Bayou and Do Rentals LLC and situated on 8338 and 8342 Main Street, Homa, Terrebonne Parish, Louisiana. Bayou Andu Rentals LLC applicant, and calling a public hearing on said matter for Wednesday, July 15th, 2020 at 6:30 p.m.
Motion by Ms. Domingue, second by Mr. Darren Gidry. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion carries. Item D is Policy, Procedure, and Legal Committee, Mr. Ombrity.
I make a motion that the council accept and ratify the minutes of the Policy, Procedure, and Legal Committee meeting held on June 9th, 2020, and I have one public hearing. The Policy, Procedure, and Legal Committee introduced an ordinance to amend the Terrebonne Parish Code of Ordinances by amending Chapter 7, Section 7-5A to mirror Louisiana Revised Statute 29:727D as amended in 2018 by removing the automatic 30-day expiration on declared states of emergencies in Terrebonne Parish, and to make that amendment effective retroactively, and calling a public hearing on said matter on Wednesday, June 24th, 2020 at 6:30 p.m.
Move Mr. Ombrity, second Mr. John Davy. All in favor? Any opposition? Motion carries. Appointments to various boards, committees, and commissions. Rec District 11, 2 unexpired terms due to resignations. Motion to hold, Mr. Dirk Gidry.
Second.
Second, Mr. Carl Harding. All in favor? Any opposition? Motion carries. Recreation District 2-3, 1 vacancy due to resignation. Motion to hold, Mr. Darren Gidry.
Second.
Second, Mr. Carl Harding. All in favor? Any opposition? Motion carries. Rec District number 9, 1 expiring term. Ms. Bayless Bergeron Jr. expresses interest in being reappointed. Open, close, and appoint Mr. Danny Babin. Second, Mr. Darren Gidry. All in favor? Any opposition? Motion carries. Consolidated Waterworks, District Number 1, 3 expiring terms. Mr. Terry Cavalier of District 4 submits an application and resume. Mr. Vincent Celestin of District 1 expressed his interest in being reappointed. No applicant from District 2. Motion to appoint Ms. Cavalier and Mr. Celestin, and hold a third vacancy by Mr. Amity, second Mr. Darren Guidry. All in favor? Any opposition? Motion carries. Parish President announcements not here. Council announcements. Seeing no lights, I just want to make my little spiel again to keep our veterans and active military, law enforcement, firefighters, and all the above of your thoughts and prayers. My brain dead. Monthly engineer reports. As per Mr. Danny Babin, second Mr. John Davy, all in favor? Any opposition? Motion carries. Motion to adjourn, Mr. John Davy, second Mr. Darren Guidry, all in favor? Any opposition? Motion carries. Good evening, y'all. Have a good night.